Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing? I hope your week has been going well so far. First things first, happy Black History Month. I know, it's the end of October, but it still counts, right? Moving on, I know a few things have changed since you last saw me, including my hair. Yes, I decided to shave it all off about 3 months ago, I think. As I felt that my natural hair wasn't growing, the texture had changed, and yeah, I just wasn't happy with the state it was in. I wasn't going to bleach it, but hey, here we are. So let me know what you all think about it. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Please don't. Just keep your opinions to yourself. Like not everything needs to be said. Anyway, have you seen my last video? I know it was a bit of a strange one, but after ordering so many boots, I was like, hey, may as well just do a try on, innit? So if you haven't seen it, I would advise you to go and give it a watch. And if not, at least just go and give it some love and just like leave a little like and a comment. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel.
We are so powerful. I'm gonna need you to repeat after me. We are so powerful. We are so powerful.
So I just wanted to have a quick chat. More like a ramble about the right to demonstrate today, especially after earlier in the week, video emerged of Insulate Britain protesters being sprayed with ink after blocking roads in Acton and in Dartford. So if you don't know who Insulate Britain are, according to Wikipedia, Insulate Britain is an environmental activist group formed by people involved in the global environmental movement Extinction Rebellion. The group began hosting both online and in-person events in July 2021, also raising money for direct action. They use civil disobedience as a tactic. Now, I know many people have their issues with Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion as well, especially as the majority of the groups are generally white middle-class people, although I do believe these people should exploit their privilege to do these things. But I digress. Exile gained notoriety after blocking a commuter train at Canning Town back in 2019. And they did get a lot of slack for it. For me, honestly, as a firm supporter for protest and civil disobedience, I actually don't share the same opinion as most of my comrades who pointed out that this action was detrimental to their cause and also prevented working class people from getting to work. And I really hate this critique, but we can circle back to it. However, I do understand the overall criticism of their methods, their lack of self-awareness, for example, by encouraging protesters to get arrested by the police. And I fully understand how their refusal to engage with anti-capitalist critique is detrimental to the climate justice movement. But that's an aside, so let's get back to the matter at hand, which is Insulate Britain and the right to protest. So, first of all, we're not going to pretend that protest movements generally are treated favourably in the UK, and we can go way back in history to the suffragettes or the civil rights movement and apartheid in South Africa to see how the public and the media spoke about political activism and the fight for equal rights. To be honest, any kind of civil unrest, whether peaceful or disruptive, is usually met with harsh criticism from the public, the media and the government. And secondly, are we really going to pretend that the same people criticising Insulate Britain would support them if they use different methods? Honestly, I don't think so. Now, I'm biased. As a Black person, I will always defend people's rights to protest, especially as historically it has been a vehicle for us, Black people, to dismantle systems of oppression that have subjugated us for centuries. Likewise, as a working class person and a socialist, defending people's right to assembly is like kind of our whole thing. Without protest and the movements that came before, we barely would have any of the rights that we're able to enjoy today. Now, I'm highly suspect of people criticizing Insulate Britain, especially after Black Lives Matter used even more disruptive methods over the summer to protest George Floyd's murder and systematic injustices in the UK and globally, from pulling down statues, defacing property and blocking roads. And yeah, let's not pretend that BLM was treated in a favourable manner in any of its incarnations from 2016 and beyond, because they weren't. From being defamed as a Marxist organisation funded by George Soros, what's wrong with being a Marxist, by the way, to other bizarre negative portrayals in the press. A lot of people believe speaking about and protesting systematic injustices would create more racism. Yes, really, that is the state of anti-racist discourse in the UK. So there's that. Now, after a turbulent summer of protests, from BLM to Free Palestine, Kill the Bill, anti-lockdown protests and protests against climate change, the government has now taken upon itself to introduce a bill to stifle our rights to protest. Yes, the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, or the PCSC bill, was introduced earlier this year to increase the powers of the police, including the ability to impose conditions on any protest which is deemed to be disruptive to the local community, and up to 10 years in prison for damaging memorials such as statues. Wait, there's more. Under this bill, police forces will be allowed to criminalise protests they believe constitute a public nuisance, including imposing starting and finishing times and noise limits, and will be able to consider actions by one individual as protests under provisions of the bill. Now, this is highly suspect for several reasons. Firstly, the terminology used already demonizes the majority of protest movements. Using disruptive as an indicator or marker of legality already shows that any form of civil disobedience is inherently a nuisance and therefore criminal. Also, let's be real here. We've seen how the police handle public disorder. I highly doubt they'll use common sense to discern unarmed female protesters, for example, from far-right extremists terrorizing refugees in a hotel. Yes, that's what they've been doing. Also, don't you mind find it odd that the inclusion of memorials and statues, this summer was kind of mad. People were pulling down statues of slave traders, and imperialists, everywhere. Edmund Colston, gone. Winston Churchill, defaced. Every slave trader, gone. And as it should be, of course. But now, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, and probably one of the cruelest politicians out there, has criminalized pulling down an inanimate object. Can you imagine? After BLM protests specifically called out white supremacy and how our institutions uphold it and revere it, then to go on and introduce legislation that criminalizes that action kind of proves BLM's and the wider anti-racist movement's point, right? And when we consider that we have a criminal justice system that disproportionately institutionalizes Black people, predominantly men, this legislation is very disconcerting. And we also know that Black people are othered and stereotyped by the media and wider society too. So it's very dangerous for the government to introduce a bill increasing police powers to restrict our human right to freedom of expression through protest. Now, that was a lot to take in, so I hope you're still following. Back to Insulate Britain. So now many people have criticised Insulate Britain for their tactics. Insulate Britain tend to block traffic on popular roads and the motorway, thereby turning a lot of people off of their cause. Now, I would like the very same people to suggest ways an effective protest in history hasn't disrupted everyone, and I mean everyone's day-to-day life, to instigate systematic change. Is that not the whole gist of protest? Because if I'm standing at the side of the road with a placard, what impact am I going to make? As if climate change isn't disrupting people's lives, more than just lateness, more than just being late for work. And I did say we were going to circle back to the entire late for work criticism that people have been throwing around. And I have so many thoughts. I'm going to try and cut it down. So first of all, who likes work? Like, what job are you doing that you're in such a hurry to be there? Like, honestly, if I'm commuting to a job, which I hated, and I saw on the news that Insulate Britain had blocked up all the roads, like, you think I'm gonna start moaning? Sorry, like, I'm going back to sleep. Next, isn't this time to like have a conversation about our outdated and backwards concepts of work, like where employees are penalized for lateness which is out of their control? Honestly, like, if an employee loses a shift, gets a reduction in pay, or is reprimanded for events completely out of their control, it says more about our toxic corporate culture than anything else. So laying the blame squarely on Insulate Britain protesters, I think is very misguided. And I think people need to think more critically about these kinds of things. And plus, I think ecological breakdown is like a serious issue. Like, these wildfires and the floods and the droughts, and like, they're not a joke. Also, the awful violent behaviour towards protesters, Insulate Britain protesters, is literally just overboard. Like, I've seen people like drag them out of the way, like they've been subject to abuse, both verbal and physical. Like, these are elderly people like protesting to protect our planet and to insulate social housing. Like, it's not like they're Nazis or far-right extremists or something. Like, well, I hope not. So when people call for them to like be run over or get arrested or get their state pensions cancelled or their benefits cut, like, it really highlights the degeneracy of the British psyche. Like, it's just so mean-spirited. Like, I remember discourse on Twitter a few weeks ago regarding the mum who was taking her child to school in an SUV, and she was hurling abuse at Insulate Britain protesters, obviously, who blocked the road. I'll see if I can find some.
Push him up the fucking road.
No, I'm not joking. My son needs to get to school.
Push him up the road.
Move out the way now.
She's going to
I'll try
punch her up.
to
Wait, punch her up.
My son is 11 and he needs to get to
Punch
school.
her up.
My son is 11. He needs to get to school and I need to get to work. So move out the way then. Move out of the way.
And people were criticising SUVs and their carbon footprint. And then those people who were talking about that, people accused them of jealousy, and also said that normal working class people are being stopped from going about their lives. Whew. Stop. We need to stop this narrative with this faux concern about the day-to-day lives of the working class. Normal working class people use public transport or their 2 feet to get to work. In London, anyway. Like, let's be real. They don't drive expensive cars. Real working class people, the people on 0 hours contract, people who are, you know, going to their second job, are extremely unlikely to be able to afford these things. And the thing is, people don't realise that this public discontent with Insulate Britain and other similar protest movements like Extinction Rebellion and like Black Lives Matter even, are being exploited by the government to remove our right to protest and enact change. So we have to be really careful how we treat these groups if we want to protect our right to public assembly. And with the way this government and Priti Patel is moving, we're gonna need to. So thank you so much for listening to my ramble. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts on Insulate Britain and the wider climate justice movement. Are you going to any climate protests for COP26? It does start tomorrow. I saw my girl Greta, she's already in Glasgow, so I know that she's about to do a madness. Yes, girl. Also, what are some alternative yet effective ways to protest other than disrupting people's day-to-day lives? Do let me know in the comment section. And if you haven't already, please give this video a like, share it with your friends, and of course, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Take care now. Bye.